Hello, everyone, and welcome to Buffalo Bills Breakdown. I am Sal Maiorana. I'm joined, as always, by Leo Roth. A Thursday afternoon in a period, Leo, of the NFL season where not a whole lot going on. We had that first big wave of free agency. Things have really slowed down since then, and now we're kind of just building up the next 3 or 4 weeks for the draft. So we're kind of in a lull here. But the Bills did make a signing earlier in the week. Another offensive lineman. That makes 6 that they've brought in since March, early March. Quentin Spain, this guy played for the Titans, Leo. He was a 4-year starter. I think he was undrafted. His first start, actually, was against the Bills in 2015, the game that Tyrod Taylor had his first comeback, one of his very few, comeback victories in the fourth quarter. And he ended up starting 48 of 50 games for the Titans. And I had this guy on my list of potential free agents to look at for the Bills, and here he is. He's the newest Bill.
So it's a good third wave signing.
Yeah, I
probably.
know, really.
I like, they've signed so many offensive linemen, so that it's obviously heading into the draft, that's no longer a priority need to get an offensive lineman now, which really switches the focus on defense. And you know how much Sean McDermott loves his defense, and if they could really hone in on what is a great defensive tackle draft, defensive lineman draft, that's the beauty of having the cap room, signing a lot of guys, addressing one whole entire unit. I mean, seriously, and you've talked about it before, other than Dawkins maybe manning the left or right tackle spots, I mean, you're going to have 4 new starters on your offensive line, which is good because they were so horrendously awful last year. And the bad part is that you're going to have to get these guys all playing cohesively. So, but there's a lot of young, experienced talent there, and that's encouraging. These guys have played in the league, and they've got a track record. So, if you're looking at that line to be better, on paper, it absolutely is better.
This is exactly the blueprint that I thought they should follow. I thought they should have hit the offensive line hard because you want to get guys who could come right in now and play in front of Josh Allen. Now, did I expect they were going to sign 6 free agent offensive linemen? No, I was thinking.
No, I was
thinking 1 or 2 would have
been
been
one big guy, and they got the center and Mitch Morse, and
then maybe one other guy. But they've really hit it hard. It really tells you, Leo, exactly what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott felt about that offensive line last year. So, they've got 6 guys in there now. Their holdovers are Deion Dawkins will be the lone starter who's going to hold over. They still have guys like Vlad Ducasse, Russell Bodine, Connor McDermott. But I'll tell you, I don't really see. Maybe Dawkins is the only guy from last year who survives this.
And he's no lock at all either.
Not to start. He'll be on the team.
Absolutely, on the team,
but he's no lock to start right now.
But for your top 5, I mean, they got a ton of options there, just to move guys around, versatile guys. And it's going to be interesting. He'll have to, which is good for him too.
He needs it.
He needs to be pushed, and he needs to maybe left tackle's not his spot anyhow. And so they've done some nice off-season work there, and it sets us up for in a few weeks here for the big first round, long day Thursday opening round draft. Where are they picking again? Number
9.
Number 9.
Number 9.
So. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, they can just focus boom on a serious hole they need. And that would be, to me, I guess right at this point, it is the defensive line. And although, I still believe they need a receiver and they need a cornerback. And
they've got
they
10
need they need a linebacker. And so,
they've got 10 picks. They're going to be able to fill some holes with those picks, too. Look, I'm not ruling out offensive line in the first round either. I mean, Beane has set himself up. And everyone laughs at the best player available comment, but it really is true. And most teams do take the best player available. He has at least given himself some leeway he could hone in on defensive line. I mean, I think he'll still, if one of those offensive tackles is there and they're in love with them, they're probably going to pick him. Because all these guys they've signed, Leo, with the exception of Mitch Morse, the center, who I think is going to be a very good player. Patrick Mahomes just last night said he's going to be sad to see him go. He was his center for the Chiefs. All the other guys they've signed, there's question marks. I mean, Ty Anseki is a 33-year-old guy. We don't really know. He's been good in a backup role, and when he's played for the Redskins, he did okay. But these other guys, Feliciano has got 8 career starts. Spain is the one guy who has been a full-time starter, so I expect something out of him. but they have to prove they can play, Leo. The Bills signed him, but that doesn't say that, oh, yeah, they're studs and they're going to play. So I would not rule out offensive line in that first pick if the guy they really love is there.
Yeah, you can fall in love with anybody, but I just think they got so many bodies here now on the offensive line that, to see him drop the number 9 on an offensive tackle now.
I agree.
I would just say
I would go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, and not that they won't get some offensive linemen later on, like you said. They got a lot of picks again. It's really this roster is going to be interesting. There's going to be so many new, and of course every year that's kind of the case. I shouldn't say it'll be any different.
But this is
roster turnover. There's always like 30. What is it? 30 new guys on average.
I don't know if it's that high for,
out of the 80,
for the good teams at least.
Well, the 80, I'm talking about the 80 man. When they bring
that's
in
probably higher than for the 90 man roster. But you look at this right now. They've brought in 16 unrestricted free agents. If they were all to make the team, think about this: 16 guys out of a 53-man roster. That's almost a third of the roster has been built in the last month. If they all make the team, that's a pretty big turnover, and that's not even counting the draft picks, who you hope to believe that their first 2 guys they pick can step right into the start too. So that's a pretty big turnover on a team that.
But who do they need to start? So they pick. Well, I guess if they spend the number 9 on a defensive tackle like, Ed Oliver.
Ed Oliver's the big name that comes up.
I mean, I would say you plug him right in there.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Why not? But that's always a rotational thing, whatever. Now, if it's an edge rusher, defensive end, that guy, again, starter. It's in today's NFL with the way they roll guys in, it doesn't matter if you start or not. It's what you do when you're in there. And now a corner cell, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, but they've addressed cornerback. They've done a pretty good job addressing cornerback in free agency. They brought in. E.J. Gaines was a good player for them when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Johnson's a former first-round pick who just needs to find a way to stay healthy. But if he can,
I'm not holding
he's a
out
good
much
player
for that guy.
Levi Wallace played well for them last year. So I think they've done a pretty good job. I would not spend the number 9 pick on a cornerback when you've already got 4 guys right now who could probably go in and play for you. And somebody made a good point the other day on Twitter that, at number 9, the way McDermott rotates those defensive linemen, this person questioned whether the Bills would spend the number 9 overall pick on a guy who may only play 50% of the snaps in a given game. Yeah. So maybe the value's not there. I don't know.
Well, that's like I said, like the way they play defense entirely. Look at the number of defensive backs that come in and out of a game.
Right.
The number of defensive linemen. Who's really out there as an every down guy? I mean, the safeties for the Bills are.
It's pretty much the safeties and Trey White play about 100% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Everybody. Well,
Tremaine Edmonds was in there. I think he was up there, right?
I would guess your 2 outside corners, Leo, play at least 90%. Really the whole secondary until you get to the backups, the nickel cornerback, the dime defensive back, and then the defensive linemen we all know rotate, and the 2 outside linebackers, Milano, Alexander. Milano will get maybe 75 to 80, and Edmonds will play 100.
100.
So really, it's just the nickel position and all 4 defensive lines that really get the biggest turnover.
So if you want to start talking about what's the value, if this guy's only going to play a certain percentage of snaps, I don't know if they get into that. I think they just say,
best player.
This is the best player. This is how we use him. It's not if they needed him 100% of the snaps, he'd play 100% of the snaps. But they just don't do that these days.
If they were to draft Ed Oliver with that number 9 overall pick, I would hope Ed Oliver is going to play 75% of the time, because I think Ed Oliver is probably going to be a better player than Harrison Phillips or Jordan Phillips. And he's probably going to be better than Star Lotulelei. So I would hope that they're not going to do a heavy rotation if that's the case. And he's good enough. If they think he's good enough and he proves it in camp, we better see a lot of him on game. I don't want to see a big rotation there. Get your best players on the field as often as you can. That's my philosophy.
He'd be a great pick. And then, I hope like heck it's a good draft too for pass catching tight ends. I hope like heck they can finally get a tight end of some kind of skill level in here to help the passing game, because they just
bring that up. There's a lot of rumor about that too. There's a lot of rumor out there that the Bills might jump at the T.J. Hawkinson guy from Iowa, who's a really good player according to the draft game. People wonder, is that too high for a tight end? Well, look, if you like a guy that much and you think he can be an impact player at whatever position it is, you go for it. You don't worry about what the draft gurus think the value is going to be. If you love a player, go get him. And you just like you said, they have lacked that player at tight end for almost their entire history.
Their entire history. In fact, we were at the press radio dinner last night. We were talking about this a little bit. Pete Metzelaars, he's your.
If he's your best tight end,
your best guy ever. Jay Remersma had some pass catching numbers.
A couple years, yeah.
I mean, they did draft Tony Hunter before they took Jim Kelly.
Yeah.
It was the big tight. So yeah, I mean, I think if you in today's game too, and some of these the way some of these tight ends are coming in, just they don't, they got enough. They got the guys that can block there. So I think they need that really gifted, and he's almost like he's really a wide receiver.
Yeah,
he would be a wide receiver, a really big body. I mean, if they can find, they got to find that guy, and they just never have. And then once they do find him, I hope like heck they know how to use him.
They signed Jake Fisher to play tight end. He was actually an offensive lineman in college, and he played a little bit of tight end for the Bengals. He's a 300-pound guy, so they're bringing him in. He's not stretching this down the seam. He's going to be a blocking tight end, and they have Jason Kroom, who's more of a pass catcher. Tyler Croft, they think can do both, but they really do lack. They do lack the true playmaker. The guy, no one's going to be Gronk, but Gronk, Jimmy Graham, Antonio Gates, these kind of players at tight end that are almost like wide receivers as far as the impact they can make down the field. They just haven't had that player. And if T.J. Hawkinson happens to be there at number 9, Leo, and Bean really likes him, I would not have a problem at all with picking that kid.
We can't sit up here year after year after year and then complain that they have no tight end and then criticize them when they take a tight end with the number 9 pick. I would think it'd be pretty intriguing and justifiable.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. I think we've hit the main topics, though. I think defensive line is going to be their priority, and like I said, there might be an offensive lineman there. There could be the tight end, but it's going to be interesting. Brandon Beane gets back into Buffalo, I think, tomorrow from a long 3 weeks on the road. They went to a bunch of pro days. It was interesting that both Bean and McDermott were at Ed Oliver's pro day. They're not always at the same place at the same time, so that was intriguing at least. And then they start hunkering down at Orchard Park, Leo, to get ready for the draft.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's kind of a slow period in terms of news. The Bills have signed 16 guys. I can't imagine there's much more that they're going to do on the free agent market. So now we're just in that last push to the draft, and it's going to be, like I said, a fascinating 3 days because with all they've done in free agency, if they can hit this draft and get some good impact players, we were talking about it last night too, those NFL projections came out and the Bills were only a 6-win team, which is like the second fewest on the whole list. I can't imagine they're a 6-win team. If these guys can play, the Bills, I think, are, and it's all hinges on Josh Allen, but the Bills could be an 8 or 9-win team and be in contention, I think, right to the end. The way I look at it right now, if Josh Allen takes a step forward, why would the Bills be a 6-win team? I don't see that.
Well, defensively, they can, McDermott's put his mark here in a short while, and he knows what he wants defensively. He gets the guys he wants. If they replace Kyle Williams with an Ed Oliver or someone else, they got the other pieces are there. Maybe they get another linebacker, another DB. Let's assume they're going to be pretty solid again on defensively.
Yeah.
They're not world beaters on defense by any means, but they can be better.
I think they'll be. Edmonds in his second year is going to be better. Milano should be better.
Right. Stop the run better, and they get to the passer better. Do those little things that are going to elevate them and at least keep them real good. Offensively, and I think you just kind of talk about that, Sal, is that you fix the line. I don't really like their running backs, to be honest with you.
No.
But
they're old.
They're old, but they're obviously a couple Hall of Fame type guys in the backfield there, and maybe they'll find another young set of legs along the way. And they've addressed some receiving. They upgrade a little bit here, and like you said, Josh Allen, just like we were talking to Patrick Mahomes last night, the MVP, and he said, he talked about his season. Obviously surrounded by some great talent, the playmakers. He talked about them, and he says, all I have to do is do what the coaches asked me to do, and he did that. And then, of course, he did a little bit beyond that too. He did
a little more
because he's so prolific and such a great, just a great talent, rare, and so he did make things happen. But Josh Allen has a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
He's got a a tremendous will to win. He's got some and an ability to beat you with his legs or with his arms. So if he just takes that next step, but also doesn't do too much, does what they want, and why 6 wins? God, I could see. Well, it's such a fine line in the NFL, and you're right.
That's
the
6
7
win.
win, the 6, 7, 8. I just hope maybe if they you got to get to that 9-win level and be in December and knocking on the door. 9, we know nine wins gets you in the playoffs.
That 6-win projection to me is based solely on a lot of people still aren't sold on Josh Allen.
Right.
It really comes down to that. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of Bills fans that still don't believe that Josh Allen is going to be this team's quarterback of the future.
Yeah.
I happen to think the kid has a pretty good chance to do it. I think he's going to improve. But I think people are basing that 6 wins on who is Josh Allen, and is he really going to make that big step? So we'll see. One thing we should talk about, because it came up since we've talked last, and someone just reminded me, Ken Capuano, about the stadium. At the owners' meetings last week, both Kim and Terry Pegula did speak to the media, and the stadium issue was a hot topic. And Ken points out here, the talk of the stadium this week has me concerned on why they would not put a retractable roof on something in this region. It would set up a possible Super Bowl in the future. That's how they should be thinking. Leo, I think the stadium issue is really getting hot. I mean, it's starting to heat up a little bit because the Pegulas have hired the firm they did the survey. They're doing a lot of research on this now. They're buying up property downtown. But Terry Pegula said at the owners' meetings that it would be a Buffalo-style stadium, and he didn't come right out and say it, but it was almost, they're not going to spend $2 billion to put a retractable roof on. They're going to have an outdoor stadium. Now, to me, if you truly have vision and you want to put it downtown, Leo, it's got to have a retractable roof, because that has to be more, there has to be a facility that you can use more than 4 months out of the year, right? For football games. You've got to be able to do other things in there. And I don't think that's in the Pegula's plan. I don't think they want to do it that way. So if that's the case, they should just build it out at Orchard Park, or do the complete Kansas City style renovation of New Era Field.
They are the complete reno of New Era Field is definitely on the table. And
Polencower's even said that.
Yeah, and
if you saw last week.
Yeah, the county exec. Yep. What he says, why wouldn't we do that? When you talk about the numbers that it takes to build a new playground. When I read into Terry Pegula's what a Buffalo style means, I can take it a couple ways. One is going to be scaled to Buffalo, the market.
Right.
It's not going to be 80,000 seats. The original Orchard Park Stadium has been getting smaller and smaller with every renovation.
Actually, I think it's at a right. It's good right now. It's about 69,000. I think that's perfect.
And
right now.
The other thing is that like you said, Buffalo would be a Buffalo style would lend itself to be, and it's going to be outdoors. It's going to be football. It's going to be. But you're right. I mean, if you do spend in that, the over $1 billion up, you're right. Why not have it with the roof where you can have big events?
Yeah, you
could get the Final Four, and you could bid for a Super Bowl because you got the Toronto comes into play. I don't know if they're thinking about all that grandiose stuff.
I don't think Super Bowl is ever going to be on the table, because there's just not enough infrastructure in Buffalo to handle it, hotels and all that. Now a Final Four, I think that's a little bit of a different event.
You sell it as you would sell a Super Bowl as the Toronto Buffalo.
But do you think people really want to go over the border? They would need their passport to go back and forth over the border.
Oh, no,
I don't know that Toronto is a viable reason to have a Super Bowl here. I don't think that's a viable reason.
It doesn't snow in February, so what are we worried about?
Well, they've tried it. They tried it in New York, and it worked out fine.
It in New York.
They lucked out because they got a good weather day.
And they've been in Detroit.
But that was indoors.
Indoors.
Yeah, the indoors are fine. Minnesota, Detroit, that was fine.
But I'm talking about just the fact that you could have an incredible weather event. But they've done it in Minnesota, and they've done it in Michigan, and they've done it in New York City.
Do you really want an incredible weather event for the Super Bowl? Really?
No, but they've risked it before. The NFL has done it.
They did it because it was New York City, though.
And Minnesota.
But that's indoors, though.
No,
the game was played indoors.
Yes, I know that, but I'm just talking about the fact that what if there was an incredible snowstorm of the century, and people couldn't even get to the into the dome.
That's a risk. I'm talking about if they had an outdoor stadium in Buffalo.
Oh yeah,
and you put that would not be
some crazy.
If you had a crazy weather event, that would ruin the game.
Hey, you wouldn't forget it.
No, you wouldn't forget it. You probably wouldn't enjoy the game either. You know my thoughts on snow football. I can't stand it because the games are usually awfully played.
Yeah, but I hate dome football too.
I know. I don't like dome football either. But at least the guys can be athletes in the dome. True. They can play to their full potential, whereas they're running around freezing their butts off and slipping all over the place, and they can't be the true athletes that they are. That's what bugs me about snow football. All right, real quick, let's get out of here. Sabres close their home season tonight. Last game is Saturday on the road. Just your quick thoughts, because you follow it a little closer than I do. I've stopped watching the Sabres. I know you're still hanging in there. How disappointing has this been? This has just been so colossally disappointing after the start they got off to.
Well, the night they won their 10th consecutive game earlier in the year, and I was there that night, and it was just like, I'm saying, wow, they've really turned the corner here, and obviously they're not going to not lose a game the rest of the year, but they're going to make the playoffs. This team is really good, and I know a lot of it was luck, or the turning of the tide. They had great goaltending was going on. They were winning the shootouts and the overtimes, and I know that stuff will even itself out. But they were a team that was playing with a lot of passion, heart, scoring, the whole bit. It was just, everything was working. To see this collapse down the stretch, I mean, they went 2-12-2, I think it is, 2-12-2 in the month of March.
Yeah. Which to me is 2-14, by the way.
Yeah.
Because those two tie overtimes were losses.
Right. So, I mean, it's just an epic collapse. It's put a lot of pressure on Phil Housley and certainly on Jason Botterill as the GM, and they're saying, what the heck happened and how far are we away now? And of course, the questions are now when Housley's up there, and he'll get asked again tonight, and whatever, and the players will get asked, and did they quit on you? Did you quit on this coach? I can't believe we're hearing those questions again.
I know.
After all the down seasons that the Sabres have been through, but here they are. Now, I mean, it takes a real lot of look at the big, broad organizational picture. And down in Rochester, the Amerks are having a fantastic year, and they're going to be a really strong pick to go deep in the playoffs. Now, they do have to go deep, because what they can sell here to the whole organization is that, and real quick too, the ECHL, the Cincinnati Cyclones are also are champs down in Cincinnati. So
they've got
at the two levels, the 2 levels below the Sabres, they're grooming players. Right now, they got some guys up there. Alex Nylander finally got to go up again, and he was, of course, they haven't used him real well lately on a third, fourth line, which doesn't really help him.
I know.
Olofsson got the call, and he's a player that a Sabres fan could get excited about. Borgen, they just sent back down. He's the young defenseman. Another guy, Pilot's up there. All these guys, of course, are good. Tage Thompson's down here now, the big guy, and he's finding his game down here at this level. These guys are all going to be back here in Rochester, which is why they're going to make this run. That's it, Sal, though. The pressure is on down here. Chris Taylor, the Amerks, everybody. They got to go deep. Last year they were swept in the first round.
Right.
This year they got to make a deep run. I don't say they have to win the whole thing, but it's got to be a really impressive run. Get all these young guys playoff experience, which is really important. It's a different kind of hockey. They can carry that into their careers going forward. I think they can sell that from an organizational type of standpoint. Right. Because what happened in Buffalo with the Sabres over the last month is just it's really inexcusable and alarming on a lot of levels. Like, are they really that far away again?
Yeah, it seems like they really are. But you said there is some hope, and these guys down here have to learn how to win. And going into the playoffs, where there's pressure, it's the AHL, but there's still pressure to win in the postseason. It'll be a good experience. So we hope they don't get just 3 games and go home. I hope they get in 2 or 3 series and really develop something. So then they come back to training camp in the fall, and they've got something behind them under their belt.
Yeah, because there will be that half dozen guys you can look to and say, okay, are these half dozen guys? Maybe these guys are going to help the Sabres and give them that secondary scoring, give them a really legit third line.
Which they sure don't have right now.
Yeah. And their
line.
And their second line guy has got to pick it up tremendously as well.
They really do.
So there's, I mean, when two guys, Skinner and Eichel have 30% of your goals, you're not there.
No,
you're not there.
All right, Leo, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Thanks for joining us, everybody, here at Buffalo Bills Breakdown. Again, we'll probably be back in a couple. Actually, I'm on vacation in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll do one next week because I'm not going to be here the week after. Maybe the Bills will have done something. But like I said, we're in a kind of a lull, so we'll keep it going as long as we can. And have a great week, everybody.
Sal, and congratulations, Sal, to your Sports Writer of the Year award from the Press Radio Club dinner last night. It was a great night, and like I said, Pat Mahomes was here. It was a fun time, and well deserved, buddy.
It was. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, folks, have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week.